I feel like I'm in the middle of the ocean. Like I could swim any direction, but I can't see on any side, so I don't know which way to go. I turned 19 in the same week as my high school graduation. As a present, my cousin Connor gave me a book, The Defining Decade by Meg Jay. I read the book throughout the summer following my graduation. I read it on the bus, at home, on holiday with my friends in Barcelona. I loved it. It was like I'd unlocked secrets I wasn't supposed to know yet, getting ahead of the game. The book gave me a lot of comfort, made me feel empowered. My friends, however, did not feel the same. I found that a lot of the things that came up in our conversations were things the author wrote about. When I would tell my friends, really excited to share this newfound empowerment with them, "Oh, that's so interesting, she talks about this in the book, it says," they tell me to stop. Looking like deer in headlights, when I was telling them, it made them feel really anxious. I stopped bringing up the book. But the truth is, almost 4 years later, and a good bit into my 20s, conversations with my friends and other young people I meet are easy to relate back to the book. I don't necessarily agree with everything written in the book, and to be honest, some of it feels a little old-fashioned. It did come out over a decade ago. Still, it comes back to me if I'm feeling a little lost, and I would argue that those of my friends who felt the most overwhelmed and anxious hearing me talk about the book 4 years ago are the ones who probably should have read it. Jay states that 20-somethings deserve to know what the experts already know. The majority of our most life-defining moments take place before the age of 35. The brain finishes rewiring itself, and our personality changes the most in our 20s. Instead of speaking about our 20s as a period of adult development, we speak about it as extended adolescence, which in turn robs people of their ambition and agency. Seeing our 20s as killing time and pushing everything to our 30s will only increase the pressure we are seemingly trying to avoid by delaying growing up. The key points being that we need to build ourselves up in our 20s, do the things that add to who we are now, and invest in who we want to be in the future. Jay refers to this as identity capital. We need time for exploration, but not exploration that isn't supposed to count. Make your time and your life count. The book touches on many aspects of life and relates a lot of it back to research and our own clients' experiences. Jay brings up almost everything you can think of and makes correlations between things I would not have thought to put together myself. But ultimately, what I took away and what I would consider the message of the book is to live your life with purpose and intention, whatever you do. And it will be different for everyone, but make sure you choose your actions and don't just let life happen to you. Whether you made active choices or just let yourself get swept along, either way, you will be responsible for where your life ends up. I feel like I'm in the middle of the ocean. Like I could swim any direction, but I can't see on any side, so I don't know which way to go. It's a direct quote from the book and one of Jay's 20-something therapy clients, one that I'm sure many others can relate to. So what do we do? I won't claim that reading the book gave me all the answers and now I don't struggle with the milestones of growing up and becoming an adult trying to shape some sort of life I feel content with. But I will say that when I do really put in the work and try and think, a lot of Jay's messages come back to me and things feel clearer. I make mistakes and less optimal decisions still, but I practice dealing with the consequences and making the best out of the situations. Learning about how our brain works and why we are the way we are and what we can do about it gives us a lot more agency. The frontal lobe, Jay explains, is the forward-thinking part of the brain. It's where we hold consequence thinking, and it balances us out a bit as we grow up. It finishes developing in our 20s, and the more we use it, the stronger it gets. Quote, "It's not even about doing it all by 30, but getting started before 30. And not because of social norms and pressure, but because it's actually easier for us to do with our 20-year-old brains than our older ones." End quote. This does not mean that we're in trouble if we don't have it figured out yet, but I just hope for myself at least that what I am doing is laying a good foundation for what I want out of my life, so that I don't have to start from scratch with a less spongy brain, because it's been working hard enough already. For me, COVID made the feeling of being stuck a little stronger, but I'd also like to think it made it clearer what I actually want. I always struggled with being interested in too many things and not knowing what to pick. I also knew that I didn't want to pick one and do a degree and regret it. So I've been prioritizing identity capital. Trying out different jobs has helped me realize what I want my life to look like. Not just what I want to work with, but everything else. What's important to me. I think I've built a good enough base to have narrowed things down a bit and finally settled on wanting to study journalism. So a degree will be the next big adult step I take. When is another question. At the moment, I'm enjoying traveling too much, which also tells me something about what I want from life. I've realized that growing up in 2 different countries has made me see the concept of home a little differently. Home is wherever I am, so I'm trying out different potential ones. At the moment, home is in Seoul. Where I go next, I don't know, but I'm challenging myself personally while also taking online courses in topics and skills I feel will be relevant to me overall in the field I want to pursue and the lifestyle I hope to achieve. My life philosophy, other than fake it till you make it, is swim. Pick a direction and swim, because if we float for 10 years, by the time we reach 30, sure, we could have floated a little closer to where we wanted to go, or maybe even floated somewhere where life is pretty good. But floating will never get us all the way. We have to swim as well. And I think I'm finally happy with the direction I have chosen to swim. But I'm not even 24 yet, so what the hell do I know? I spoke to some other 20-somethings to get some different perspectives. Let me introduce you to Walton, a 25-year-old Chinese-Canadian guest at the hostel, tells me he is in the second phase of his 20s. After securing a degree in computer engineering and landing a good job in New York City for a few years, he realised on one of his work trips that although he enjoys his work, he wanted to try something other than, quote, slaving over a desk. Now he is travelling and focusing on meeting new people while building his own app on the side. He sees this phase continuing for a while, and at some point he will settle on his favourite city of those he has visited, essentially scouting his next home base. I asked him whether he thinks what he's doing now correlates to what he wants later, or if he feels stressed.
Yeah, but I mean, the percentage of single people in their 30s is going to be lower than the percentage of single people in their 20s. No, this is me trying to win an argument.
He says the only stress might be finding a partner, but otherwise he's living in the moment. Walton also tells me he's not interested in others' opinions, but I will give mine anyway. I think he's a good example of laying good building blocks for the future while still enjoying his youth. I admire his taking things day by day attitude, but still having planned out phases, and I reckon his frontal lobe is developing nicely.
And I think the big thing is to not try to critique yourself when you've made like a less optimal decision.
Juliet, or Jules, 26, born and raised in Paris, and one of my co-volunteers at the hostel. She finished her degree in demography and sociology, and said she wasn't really happy just sitting at a desk. So she came to Seoul to gain new experiences and perspectives to bring back with her. Being in her mid-20s, Jules tells me her social circle consists mainly of friends in their early 30s or just about to turn 30. She says she understands the point of the book, but she feels that she wants to prioritise exploration and learning about herself. She's not feeling the pressure yet, although says that some of her friends around 29 tell her that already by then she might feel differently. We discussed the differences for men who don't have the same biological clock on starting a family, and she says many of her male friends in their 30s seem to be living the same life, while her female friends are starting to think a little differently. Jules will be happy if her 30s look similar to her 20s.
Before the age of 35?
80% of your most life-shaping events will happen before the age of
That
35.
sounds a bit sad.
In the end, she just wants to look back in her 60s and be happy. She wants to build a life with a lot of love and learning that stays with her throughout her whole life.
Poor. Yeah, I feel like it's gonna be a poor years ahead of me. Like I feel like I have to wait a long time before I'm getting like economically comfortable.
Clementine, or Clem, is a 21-year-old also born and raised in Paris and a dear friend of mine. She went straight from school to degree in graphic design, and although she loves it, she tells me now she is slightly conflicted between her creative side and the side of her who craves financial stability. This is what she hopes to figure out in the years to come. Now, she's spreading her wings for the first time, living in Seoul for a few months post-graduation. I asked her to tell me what she wants her life to look like. She wants to have 2 houses, one in the city and one in the countryside. She wants to spend half the year working and half the year painting and being an artist. Having such a clear vision is great. We spoke a bit less about one's 30s and more about youth, seeing as she's just getting started. One of the most interesting things she told me is that she feels like she has to take advantage of being young and beautiful, and that the thought of her beauty fading scares her.
I think about the beauty a lot. That's stressful to me. Because I feel like the more I'm growing, the less my beauty, the more my beauty is wasting, like it's that way.
She thinks things are easier when you are young and beautiful, and she doesn't know how to use this yet, or if she even wants to. I think it matches well with the book's point that things are a little easier for us in our 20s, and it made me think about how, perhaps for women, who are often valued highly for their beauty, they face the added pressure of time as something so greatly valued by others slips away from them.
That's what I wanted to, that's something that I wanted to touch on. but I do think that that's true. Like the more you're sure of yourself and what you want and don't want, the easier it gets to make those decisions. And that's why like the frontal lobe thing also makes a lot of sense.
Lara, 25 from Hamburg, another one of my hostel colleagues, spent the first part of her 20s getting 2 degrees and is in the middle of her next phase, entering the workforce. In between, she is taking time to travel. Living in Seoul for close to a year now, she works on personal projects, including music. We had a very mature and stimulating conversation about life and choice, and perhaps certain things we have a hard time picturing in only a few years, like difficulty seeing oneself as a mother because all the times have changed, stereotypical gender roles are easy to fall back into in family dynamics.
First time of like struggling for me, thinking about like my next step. I think maybe because it's such a huge step to do to enter like the workforce and potentially be stuck somewhere.
And risking ending up feeling trapped. Lara arguably has the widest foundation, with a good amount of life experience and education, but says she is struggling to bridge the gap between being a student and a working woman. She wants to find a job that feels important to her, and after that long conversation, she admits that really she wants to be a pop star. Lara tells me she clings to the 20s and really wants to enjoy these years. She says our conversation made her nervous, and although she's a person who is pretty sure of herself, it reminded her that it is of course easier to have things figured out.
Like I had some goals for this year, and I've been accomplished. So yeah, maybe I just need to kind of push a little bit of the pressure that will send me against me.
I know her a bit, so I definitely think she'll get there. Let's hope she figures out the pop star thing. Nazar, or Naz, is a 26-year-old Londoner and a guest at the hostel on his way back from working and travelling in Australia for a year. In London, he works as an electrician and he sports a very clear life philosophy of his own. It's worth mentioning that on the way to Seoul, Naz was arrested and detained in Hong Kong for accidentally packing bullet casings from a farm in Australia in his suitcase. He's arguably in the middle of perhaps a very life-altering event when we speak. Naz tells me that he thinks our modern society has gotten happiness and success mixed up. The hyper-focus on figuring it out and making money shows no proof of making us happier, which is his goal. He says he has no timeline for his life, and as long as he has enough income for a comfortable life for him and his family, he doesn't really care what he does. His simple yet challenging outlook is refreshing. I can't say I meet many people who genuinely think this way.
You've got to find your sort of stability within yourself. Your mindset on things has to be the most, in my opinion, solid, well-founded, most researched kind of piece of that you can then use to navigate everything.
The hurdles Naz says are coming for him is where to live. His girlfriend needs to be close to her sick father in Australia, and although Naz says Australia suits his lifestyle better, he really wants to spend the time he has left with his parents close to them. A real family man, Naz reminded me of thinking about life as more than just where we live and what we do for work. And as of yet, he is still waiting to find out whether he will be charged in Hong Kong. Then he'll take it as it comes.
The most important thing is confronting everything you come across in one way or another. Because if you don't give your brain the space to do it, it will take that time itself, whether it be like 1 in the morning when you're trying to sleep and you can't, or randomly when you have a breakdown somewhere in the middle of a big, Hong Kong. Hong Kong. Oh, I had a breakdown.
There are a lot of things in the book, like the way that figured out life still manages to focus on very traditional aspects of success that are aging out a bit. Success and what makes us happy in life may be different for this generation, and surely it'll be different for the next, but the large strokes still apply. Having purpose and claim over our own lives makes us happier. It can feel very intimidating, but speaking to all these smart, interesting young people makes me think that when we are pushed a little, although overwhelming, we've got a pretty good idea of what we want. Most of us naively think there's a chance we'll feel the same in 10 years. But hopefully we've swum a bit further by then. Jay tells us to claim our adulthood, and I say, don't let it claim you.